Hello, Ken. How are you this amazing evening?
Amazing afternoon, Dan. If we're going to stay with the alliteration, looking outside at the pool and the sun shining here in Phoenix, I'm doing great. How are you tonight from
I'm
where you're
excellent.
at?
It is
It's
also
night.
evening. I guess, oh, afternoonish evening. It's
Yeah,
it's six something, but is we are just getting past the longest day of the year, the
my
summer
favorite day.
solstice. The summer solstice. Yes. And you know what I need to do? I need to have more awareness to stuff like whether it's nighttime or it's afternoon. What is this all about? Awareness stuff.
Well, Dan, I think it would be good if you were more self aware. Like, I think it'd be good for all of us if we were more self aware. Yeah, so this has been a fascinating week, and I know we want to talk about awareness in various different forms tonight. So I'll kick it off with the experience that I had with my dad this past week. He was hospitalized and then came home to my sister's house where he lives with my sister and her boyfriend, and we had to develop this sense of acute awareness for everything that was going on with him. He was diagnosed with something called congestive heart failure, and they were able to clear that up enough in the hospital so that he could come home safely. He came home with this phenomenally advanced machine, at least in my mind, that's maybe 3 feet tall, 2 feet wide, and produces pure oxygen. You just plug it in, he's got his oxygen source there. The downside is that it's got a 50-foot long tube so that he can go from his bedroom to the living room to the bathroom and not have to worry about not having oxygen on. But the challenge is that it presents a trip hazard. So that was our first point of awareness in my dad's home care, was like, oxygen tube, must be aware of that, must help him navigate that and like work around that. Second thing was just monitoring his vitals, checking his weight, checking his blood pressure, his pulse, and the amount of oxygen, the PO2 in his system, and doing that a couple times a day. And then the third thing was just his general energy, like literally paying attention, observing, making sure that we didn't see any signs of decline. And what it really pointed out to me was I go through a lot of my day not terribly aware. I go through my day just kind of on autopilot. In some ways, it's great. I get things done without really thinking about them. But in other ways, like the great lesson and in some ways, blessing that came out of this past week for me, these past, 9, 10 days, was that I was so deeply aware at every moment of everything going on with him. Like I've truly paid attention. And so not only did we get like the practical benefit of like dad's doing better, and that's great, but I also like had the probably some of the best conversations with him I've ever had. Like they were deep and they were focused, they were meaningful. And I think it's just because I was paying such close attention to his physical health. I paid super close attention to everything that was going on. And we spoke to each other, his mannerisms, giving him a hug, all of those things. So for me, being aware of my dad's condition actually was not just a benefit to him, it really benefited me as well.
Ken, who am I? Because I'm talking about self awareness, being aware of who you are. I think if I look at, and I won't call it any individual children, but if I look at my children or just younger people in general, that's what they're trying to figure out, right? So when they're going through, let's say, high school years, they're just like trying to figure out their identity. Like, who am I? What am I all about? What do I believe in? And the reason this is a topic that I'm really aware of is because in hypnosis, we talk about the ability to bypass your conscious mind and be able to speak directly to your subconscious mind, have an impact on the things that are stored there. And what's stored in your subconscious mind is what we call our identity, right? It's your values, your rules, your beliefs, your memories, all that stuff is stored inside of there. And it gets stored when we're from 0 to 3 years old. We are 100% subconscious, probably not 100, but we're mostly subconscious. We're just completely accepting. We're just like sponges absorbing everything, and kind of like we're starting to form like things about life just based on what we're exposed to. And then as we start to have some critical thought, age 3-ish, then we start to become more aware of how people are reacting to us, etc. But we're super aware of how people are reacting to us, I'd say in the teenage years, where, and especially with social media, we are on like constant alert for justification, for people telling us we're good enough, right? So those likes, in dating apps, right? Like people getting matches, all of these things that you're just, you're on guard to see, like, am I good enough? What am I all about? And I also think that it's impossible to have, impossible, it's extreme. It is very difficult to form very good friendships, and definitely difficult to form relationships if you are not self-aware. And all I mean by that is, whether you're going to change your mind a lot is fine, but just make some decisions about who you are. And this is what I mean. Have some decisions about like, what your, like what you stand for. What are like no-go things, and what are things that are like are must-have things for you. There's the saying, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. I think that's how it goes, something like that. And so I think that part of creating your own self-awareness, part about deciding your identity and who you are, is to just say, like, to create your own standards, and don't let them just go on autopilot, what was formed without your awareness in your subconscious mind. But really ask yourself these questions and decide on a couple things, like, nope, I don't tolerate cheating, or I will never steal, or like, I would not date somebody who does drugs. Whatever you come up with, but come up with your standards, for yourself, and you're starting to formulate part of your identity. And then from there, you have standards that allow you to form friendships with people who align with that. They're your go, no go decision making, right? Like, that's not the kind of person I want to form a relationship with. This is the kind of person who matches well with me because the standards all match up. So step one, in my opinion, of awareness is self-awareness. Make decisions about who you are, and keep it simple. Start with your go, no go things about what you stand for and what you believe.
So I had a chance to evaluate that kind of stuff in the journaling that I did every day. And I switched it from morning to evening because I wanted to look back and assess. I wanted to practice that kind of self-awareness. Like, how good was I at practicing what I preached? How good was I at looking at data as just data, not as positive or negative, not as good or bad, but just taking it in as more data that we could use to make decisions, in this case about my dad's healthcare. But I think it's a really good practice to look back on the day and to do some reflection and evaluation as this form of self-awareness. I know that each day that I did that, the benefit was the next morning, as I stepped into the day, I would recall those things where I had fallen short. And by doing that, it helped me to make better decisions and to not get caught up in creating stories about what's so, to get ahead of myself, to think about where things might go, to wonder about everything from finances to human resources, to all those other pieces. And instead, I could just be present to what was happening. I'd add something else in, though, and I think this is why it's so important to have a trusted group of people around you. Part of self-awareness for me is seeking others' input. And I think I know this is part of what makes a great leader great. Not only are they not afraid of getting input from their staff, from their team, they welcome it, they encourage it. That kind of self-awareness helps us to eliminate blind spots, things that we may not be aware of. getting other people to comment on things helps us know whether or not what we're doing is actually landing in the way that we want it to land. Having other people give us their constructive feedback gives us an opportunity to grow and advance no matter what stage of leadership you're at. And so to me, it applies across the board. And that's why during this time, I reached out to a friend I've had for 40 plus years and talked to him about some of the things I was going through, how I was handling them, and got his honest feedback. And in so doing, I was able to course correct and be better for my sister, for my dad. So my word of encouragement to people is, number one, engage yourself in that kind of self-awareness by journaling, by looking back on the day and asking yourself how well you did. And then number two, to reach out to someone who's trusted. There are a couple of people who are really trusted friends that can give you that kind of feedback as well to help illuminate blind spots and help you improve. And the addendum to that is, like, on a corporate level, on a leadership level, great leaders are self-aware. Great leaders seek feedback, and great leaders take seriously what gets said to them so they can advance the cause of their company, but so they can also grow individually as a human being and as a leader.
Talking about looking back, I had the amazing good fortune to not only see this, but to share this with my families, which was I found a video, a VHS video in a box. And it was from 1991. And so 30 plus years ago. And it was the house we grew up in. I come from a family of 6 children. And I did not know exactly what was on the video. But it was amazing because it was my siblings, my parents, and my mom's parents. And I actually interviewed everybody in this video. Like, I literally went around to each individual person and asked them questions and had an interview. So you got to, not just like a birthday party, everyone singing happy birthday, but you get to actually see like personality, and you got to see, it was really cool to see the old house and how it was decorated and have those memories pop up. But I bring that up because, one, it was really cool, but two, talk about journaling. I think one of the most amazing things that anybody can do for themselves is create like a video history for yourself, right? There's been many things where people talk about like New Year's resolutions and like setting goals and doing stuff like that. But how cool would it be if you created almost like a video journal for yourself, right? Like, you almost interview yourself or check in and just, maybe give your recap of a period of time, a month, a year, whatever, and talk about your goals and talk about what you're working on, and then be able to look back and see your progress. There's a very common saying, like, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. I'm all about measurable, shown, like proven improvements, and not just kind of like emotional feeling better, right? Like, where there's a strong case where like you just start to feel better about things in life. What I think is really awesome is when you can show measurable change. The easiest example of measurable change is obviously somebody's trying to lose weight. Anybody who's ever come to me for coaching, I myself, I always say a couple things when you're about to get started on whatever journey you're about to take, eating, working out, etc. Start by taking measurements, right? Get your body fat tested from a good system that has body fat. Obviously, you do your weight and stuff like that. And then when you fall through in your plan, it's great to have like a system of checking boxes. Like, if you're doing it daily, that's awesome. Or writing your number on the board if you're committed to a certain period of time, like writing what number you're at or a countdown, something. So that's the measurable part. But also, what's amazing in that specific example of, trying to be healthier is that sometimes the scale is not a reflection of reality. Because sometimes when you're working out, you are having muscle gain that replaces fat loss. And so you could see almost very little to no change on a scale, even over a longer period of time. You could almost have 30, 60 days of consistent working out with weights, yet you're eating way better. And the scale doesn't show how far you've come. So the awareness to go, oh, I'm not just looking at one thing to see how well I'm doing, but I have multiple things. You go to your body fat test and see that change. Good body fat tests will actually show you the amount of muscle and the amount of fat and the amount of water in different parts of your body. And then obviously like the ability to measure and see if you've lost things off your weight or gained muscle in certain parts of your body. All of that stuff's amazing. But I think it starts with an awareness of a clarity. I talked about self-awareness, but this clarity, I'm like, where are you today? And to not just feel the difference, but to be able to like see the difference. One of the big things that I got to see in this video, I already knew this about myself, is 30 years ago, I was way cockier than I am now. I am very confident right now, but back then it was probably my way of overcoming some insecurities that I felt at 13 years old or whatever age I was. But the way that I was just like wanted attention and wanted to like tell people how great I was, that is a part of my personality that I can see the change. Like I've toned it down. Hopefully, if you listen to this, you feel I'm not bragging on here. But the point is that it would be one thing to think that, but what Ken also said is the ability to get feedback and be open to it, like to have a trusted friend or an accountability partner or a coach that can help monitor that and see for themselves, like, yep, in these interactions, I've seen a change in you. You used to be, like raising your hand to one up people. And now you're just sitting back and letting people talk about something and you're giving them, due credit where they need it without you having to also talk about your situation, whatever it is. But so key point here is really cool to have old videos. If you can get them, digitize them because they're really cool to reflect on. But if you can create videos for yourself and you can do measurable things to help you to be able to see how far you've come, then it's not just a feeling awareness, but it's an actual awareness that's, quantified.
So the thing I'd conclude on is I want to see that video. That's like number one. So let's make sure that happens. Number two, and this was just essential for me. Goals are super important. We had, obviously this is super fresh in my mind, so I'll go back to it again. We had goals. We had to get home health care arranged. We had to figure out the insurance situation. We had to get a caregiver to come in to give my sister some relief. We had follow-up doctor's appointments to schedule. Super measurable results that we had to produce. I mean, there was nothing squishy about them. And yet what I found that was essential was every morning who I constituted myself to be. I could have just jumped in and it would have been like hair on fire trying to get stuff done, and I would not have been of service to anyone. We could have produced the results probably like we did, but we wouldn't have gotten there with any degree of grace. But constituting myself to be possibility and love and joy in the morning, reminding myself why I was doing all of this, really focusing on my state of being as a foundation, allowed me then to step into accomplishing those goals in a way that was really filled with grace. And I would end on that note from my perspective. Focus on who you're being, and then pursue whatever goals you're pursuing. Start with being and then move to doing.
And I want to end with something that's completely off base, but it goes back to something that Ken was saying earlier, getting off of autopilot. One challenge I'd have for everybody listening would be, if you have a pattern, let's say for example, I think Ken and I both have this pattern of going out on walks, is when you go on a walk, maybe if you don't have them already, don't take off headphones, right? Or go a different pathway, but ask yourself these questions like what can I be aware of that I wasn't aware of before? Because it's so easy to just, I do it, like follow the same path and you're on autopilot and you don't notice, you're unaware of changes at someone's house or in their garden, right? Or just things that are going on. So it's almost the way you control your awareness is by just asking yourself a possibility question, right? Like, I'm going to notice all the things that are different on this walk today. I'm going to pay particular attention to noticing wildlife. Maybe there are certain animals that you wouldn't even have known or listened for because your headphones are always blocking that sound. But to create awareness to something that you're usually on autopilot for, and like to broaden the experience by becoming more aware of the things that would have gone unnoticed before, by simply asking yourself a better question like, what is different about this? What more can I bring out of this situation?